The annual Walker family reunion was in full swing at Uncle Robert's lavish Hamptons estate. Luxury cars filled the sweeping driveway, Bentleys, Maseratis, the occasional, humble Mercedes. And then there was me, arriving in an Uber, which drew immediate smirks from my cousins. "Look who finally decided to show up," Cousin John shouted, raising his champagne flute, riding public transport again. "Sarah?" I smoothed the front of my simple linen dress, refined, intentionally understated, a quiet contrast to their designer ensembles, worn like shimmering suits of armor. "Hello, John, still working for Uncle Robert, I see?" His grin faltered for a moment. "Being vice president sounded less impressive when your father owned the company." "Sarah, darling," Aunt Patricia's voice dripped with syrupy condescension, "we were just talking about you. Are you still doing that, what do you call it, consulting?" I accepted a champagne glass from a passing server and smiled. "Something like that." As I walked across the immaculate lawn, I could feel their whispers trailing behind me. 3 years had passed since I'd turned down a guaranteed executive role at Walker Industries to build my own firm. 3 years of being their favorite cautionary tale, the Harvard MBA who threw it all away. "Did you hear?" Cousin Amanda hissed to a circle of designer-clad onlookers. "She sold her condo, lives in some tiny apartment now, doesn't even own a car." They had no idea my tiny apartment was actually the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, or that selling the condo had funded my first major business acquisition. "Sarah," boomed Uncle Robert, beckoning me over to the poolside crowd. His entourage of sycophants and socialites hung on every word. My father stood off to the side, visibly uncomfortable with his daughter's unconventional choices. "Uncle Robert," I greeted him politely. "You look well," he said, though his eyes betrayed his skepticism. "Your father tells me you're still doing that independent consulting." "That's right. You know," he leaned forward, his diamond-studded watch catching the sun. "Walker Industries is always open to talented people. We could still find a place for you." "Thank you," I interrupted smoothly, "but I'm quite happy where I am." John let out a derisive laugh. "Happy? You mean scraping by like a college student. Everyone knows you're struggling, Sarah." I thought of yesterday's meeting with my executive team, the final documents on my desk, papers that would soon rock Walker Industries to its core, but I only smiled, taking another sip of champagne. "Speaking of business," Uncle Robert's voice rose to capture the crowd's attention. "I have an announcement. Walker Industries is finalizing its biggest acquisition yet. The Morrison Group merger will cement us as leaders in the tech consulting world." Applause swept through the garden. I checked my phone. Almost time. "Sarah could have been part of this," my father added pointedly. "She could have had a corner office, a driver, real success." "Instead of Ubers," Amanda squealed, nearly choking with laughter. My phone buzzed. The name on the screen made me smile. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away calmly. "I need to take this. Probably a client who can't afford real consultants." John stage whispered, setting off a round of snickers. I put the phone on speaker, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Yes, David," I said evenly. "Ma'am," my assistant's crisp voice rang out, slicing through the silence. "The $200 million acquisition is complete. Atlas Consulting now officially holds controlling interest in the Morrison Group. Shall I proceed with the press release?" The backyard fell utterly silent. John began choking on his champagne, sputtering as his eyes bulged. Uncle Robert's face went from crimson to chalk white in seconds. "The Morrison Group," he stammered. "Impossible, we're buying Morrison." I ended the call with a calm tap, meeting his panicked stare head-on. "Actually, Uncle Robert, you're not. Atlas Consulting is, and we have big plans for its future. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply impeccable timing." This is a joke," he blustered, his voice rising in pitch and color. "We've been negotiating with Morrison for months." "They were in talks," I agreed, taking a leisurely sip of champagne, "until Atlas offered a superior deal, better terms, better vision, and an actual future." My father stepped forward shakily, his proud veneer cracking. "Atlas Consulting, that's your company?" "The same little consulting business you've all loved to mock for years," I confirmed, smiling. "Not so little anymore." The crowd of designer-clad relatives had gone utterly still, the weight of their jewelry and branded handbags suddenly irrelevant. John fumbled desperately with his phone, eyes widening. "Holy shit," he muttered, reading aloud. "Atlas Consulting, they're the ones who turned around Reynolds Tech, and Pacific Solutions. Amanda peered over his shoulder, her composure collapsing. But, those were billion-dollar deals, she whispered. A successful businesswoman, I offered lightly. Amazing what one can build while supposedly living like a college student. Uncle Robert had snatched out his phone, barking into it in a raw, furious hiss. What do you mean it's final? Find a way to stop it, now. Just then, my phone buzzed again. I answered without hesitation and switched it to speaker. Ms. Walker, my CFO, Lisa Chin, said crisply, the transition team is in place. Morrison's board has ratified all terms. Oh, and Walker Industries shares are already reacting to the news. I glanced at Uncle Robert. He was staring in horror at his phone as he watched Walker's stock price plunge in real time. Thank you, Lisa, I said. Proceed as planned. You've destroyed us, Uncle Robert roared, lunging forward in rage. Years of work, millions invested, gone. I let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. Uncle Robert, I just saved Morrison from your outdated, destructive plans. Your integration strategy was a disaster waiting to happen. Your technology roadmap, non-existent. You would have gutted their core strengths to inflate short-term profits. And you think you know better? He spat, though his anger was now tinged with dread. Actually, yes, I replied, pulling a tablet from my minimalist handbag. Would you like to see the analysis, the market projections, the future you failed to see because you were too busy preserving your legacy over true progress? My father slumped into a nearby chair, pale and speechless. All those times you said you were in meetings. He murmured, his voice distant. I was building something far bigger than Walker Industries ever dared to imagine. I finished, something that values innovation over family ties, merit over nepotism. The party had fully unraveled now. Groups huddled together in frantic whispers, dozens of phones pinged with breaking news alerts. Amanda approached timidly, her earlier venom replaced by an eager, plastic smile. I always knew you were brilliant. Maybe we could talk about opportunities at Atlas. Sorry, I cut her off, my tone gentle but firm. Atlas doesn't hire through family favors. You're welcome to submit a resume, through the website. At that moment, a sleek black car glided up the driveway. My driver, yes, the one I actually had, though I sometimes preferred Uber for privacy, stepped out and opened the door. Miss Walker, he called, his voice strong and respectful, the Morrison board is waiting. I set down my champagne flute, gathered my bag, and turned to the stunned crowd with a serene smile. Enjoy the rest of the party. Then I walked away, leaving a trail of shattered expectations and silent admiration in my wake. I turned to my stunned family, raising my champagne glass in a final, deliberate toast. Thank you all for a lovely reunion. I'd stay longer, but I have a merger to complete. The following week blurred into a whirlwind of board meetings, press conferences, and watching Walker Industries scramble to contain the fallout from their failed acquisition. One evening, I sat in my so-called tiny apartment, in reality, a 5,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking the city skyline, reviewing reports when my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Miss Walker, your father is here. I closed my laptop calmly. Send him in. He stepped inside hesitantly, his expensive suit suddenly looking out of place against my sleek, modern office lined with screens showing Atlas Consulting's global operations. His eyes darted around, taking in the panoramic city view. This is where you live? He asked, voice low. For now, I replied. I'm expanding to London next month, might relocate for a bit. He sank into a visitor chair, shoulders slumping. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? I asked softly. When I started Atlas, I tried to explain. You and Uncle Robert laughed, called it a phase, said I was wasting my potential. We were wrong, he admitted, running a hand through his graying hair. But the secrecy, the way you hid it. It wasn't secrecy, I corrected gently. I never lied. You all just assumed. You saw me using Ubers and thought I was struggling. Saw my simple clothes and thought I'd failed. None of you ever looked deeper. He hesitated, then glanced at the screens again. The Morrison merger, that was the right move? The only move, I said. I turned one of the screens toward him, revealing charts and future projections. Walker would have gutted Morrison's research, fired their top innovators, all to pad short-term profits. He leaned forward, scanning the numbers, his business instincts slowly overriding his pride. These projections, they're incredible. This is what happens when you prioritize transformation over vanity. I explained, Atlas doesn't just acquire companies, we rebuild them, strengthen them. He was quiet, processing, then he spoke again, his voice brittle. Your Uncle Robert, he's retiring. The Morrison disaster shattered him. I know, I said. Atlas's board is considering making an offer for Walker Industries. His head jerked up. What? The company has potential, I said evenly, but it needs real leadership, not family politics. If I move forward, it'll only be on the condition that the family steps away completely. He stared at me, stunned. After a long pause, he asked quietly. That day at the reunion, you could have arrived in a luxury car, flaunted your wealth, shut them all up immediately. Why didn't you? I smiled faintly, remembering their shocked faces. Because success isn't about noise, it's about substance. Everything I built while they were busy mocking the surface. My phone buzzed. Morrison's integration team was ready to finalize the next steps, but before I picked up, I looked at him one last time. You know the biggest irony? I asked. All those years of reunions, competing over who had the biggest house or flashiest car, none of you were truly wealthy. He frowned, confused. Walker Industries is worth millions. Atlas is worth billions. I said softly, true wealth isn't what you show, it's what you build when no one is watching. He stood up slowly, glancing around my office again as though seeing it, and me, for the first time. Will you come to next year's reunion? He asked. Yes, I said with a small, unwavering smile, but not to prove anything, just to remind them that the quietest person in the room is often the one you should watch most closely. After he left, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, the city lights shimmering below, my empire built in silence. My phone buzzed again, a news alert lit up the screen. Atlas Consulting CEO Sarah Walker named Businesswoman of the Year, from startup to billion-dollar empire in just 3 years. I smiled, thinking back to all those gatherings where they whispered about my supposed failures, never realizing they were witnessing a legend in the making. Sometimes, the best way to show your worth isn't by flashing what you have, it's by revealing what you've built, piece by piece, while no one was paying attention. And sometimes, just sometimes, success tastes sweetest when served with a side of humble pie at a family reunion.